like to start this little intervention by thanking the National Museum of Women in the Arts for the kind invitation, and a first time for me, actually, to express myself publicly on this question of the women artists and the role of institution, and especially a national institution, in this rewriting of history of art, and the role again of an institution in that regard. I just wanted to start with a few preliminary remarks taken from the Haut Conseil à l'égalité, the High Council of Gender Equality in France. The last report mentioned that less than 15% of the exhibition dedicated to a single artist between 2012 and 2016 in France focus on a woman artist. As the situation in January 2017, there are only 38% of women directors of public cultural institutions belonging to the category of museums and heritage. I will go back to this a little bit further. There is no woman director of a museum of photography in France. I will also go back to the question of photography, which I think is very interesting for this rewriting of the history of art, especially in the 19th century. There is no museum of major importance dedicated to a single woman artist in France. That's for a start. Now I want to say a few words about the Musée d'Orsay and the fact that I was appointed exactly 1 year ago, actually, as president of the Musée d'Orsay and of the Musée de l'Orangerie. The two museums are linked together institutionally. They've been linked together 9 years ago, actually, which is a very interesting situation. In France, as you might know, the choice of a president of the most important museums, the national museums, is done by the president of a republic. It's a highly political process, in a way, and it's a highly, at the same time, highly public one, and also highly commented in the press. I mean, this is something that all the candidates know. You are under exposure when you're a candidate to this kind of position. For this particular example of the Musée d'Orsay and Musée de l'Orangerie, there was quite a transparent procedure for the Minister of Culture. A job offer was officially published, and a short list of candidates was established. With an equal number of women and men. There were 2 female candidates. I was one of them, and 2 men, and we were only 4, shortlisted for this position. But it's interesting that you find a gender equality there. My personal experience is an example also of how mentalities, I think, and practices are slowly changing in French museum, with probably the idea that the political power is actually choosing the people for the most important jobs, are really realizing that this question of gender equality is really on the agenda. And this was before the Me Too movement and what we call in France, balance ton porc, a little less elegant vision and a more violent and a more direct approach to the question. But definitely things are changing, and we are probably living a transition time to that regard. The Musée d'Orsay, I'm very proud of that. The Musée d'Orsay Executive Board now counts 3 women out of 5 members, because I decided to appoint 2 women at her position, Cécile Debray, who is my successor at the Musée de l'Orangerie, the new director of Musée de l'Orangerie, coming from Centre Pompidou, and Sylvie Patry, who has become Deputy Director for Curatorial Affairs and for Collections. She was formerly the Deputy Director of the Bounce Foundation in Philadelphia, and Sylvie was kind enough to choose to come back to France and to the Musée d'Orsay. And I'm very happy. We are probably the only national museum in France with 3 women at the head, really at the top jobs for curatorial affairs and for almost everything. It's quite a new situation, and I'm quite really proud of this. Thank you. Thank you. And it's not because, I hope it's not because we are women that we are there, but because in case of Cécile and Sylvie, they are really the best people for the jobs, really. If I'm shifting to the question of women artists in our collection, as you know, the Musée d'Orsay and the Musée de l'Orangerie, but I will focus on the Musée d'Orsay because of the important collection and multidisciplinary collection that it has. The Musée d'Orsay reflects the history of French cultural institutions and state-funded artistic systems. Its collection spanned from 1848 till 1914 or 1918, the end of the First World War, a historical moment where female artists were excluded from the fine art schools and official artistic circles, when art made by women was rather considered as a hobby for women of the bourgeoisie or the aristocracy rather than a serious and professional practice. Women slowly, as you know, started to be accepted in fine art schools from 1897, very late in the 19th century, but their works were seldom considered or acquired by the institutions. As an example, between 1864 and 1900, only 3% of the works bought by the French state were created by women. This historical situation contributed to a long-lasting process of making women's artworks invisible in the National Museum's collection, including the Musée d'Orsay. One telling number, the Joconde database, based mostly on the Louvre's collection, which spanned from antiquity to mid-19th century, has less of 1% artworks made by women artists. This number shows the overwhelming domination of men artists in French museums. Yet the Musée d'Orsay has started to take a corrective action. The Musée is the witness, as we have just mentioned, of a pivotal moment when the idea of a certain modernity, as we know it today, started to develop. The role of a museum is, among other things, to question the place of women, in this moment defined as the dawn of modernity, and the importance of women's contribution to our national heritage, and not only to our national heritage, but to the international story of this dawn of modernity. We are very, very committed right now to this cause. To this end, we recently, and I will show at least one picture, to this end, we recently acquired 2 studies from Camille Claudel, that you can see on the two very important works, actually, to start enriching the museum's permanent collection with substantial works of this major artist. The fact that the state used its preemptive right to help us acquire these 2 studies reveals the rising awareness that I was mentioning about the top position in national museums, that women and women artists and maybe women directors or curators have been discarded for too long from our national institutions. In the field of photography, and especially the work of women photographers, Orsay has been quite a pioneer. In 2015 and 2016, we held an exhibition. Actually, it was an exhibition splitted between Orsay and Orangerie, and the 19th century part was shown in Orangerie, and I think that it was maybe the most interesting part of the show, because it was really making a discovery about the history of 19th century photography and the role women, played in that story. So you see the title of the show, Who is Afraid of Women Photographers? The exhibition tackled the first century of this phenomenon through its manifestation in France, Britain, Germany, and the United States. Before that, there had never been any exhibition on French women photographers of this period. It shed a new light on women artists' extraordinary contribution to the development of a medium, and there's a lot to say again about the history of photography, because in the 19th century it's very clear that women were extremely interested and extremely creative in the field of photography, which was not considered as a fine art practice. So it was a place of liberty. It was a place where you could do things outside of the French institutional system. And there are, for that reason, I think there are a lot of discoveries to be made in the coming years. Since then, we launched, as I said, for Camille Claudel, an ambitious acquisition policy targeting the works of women photographers. For example, we recently acquired almost all of a French photographer Céline Lagarde work, and we were going to make a show about this quite extraordinary artist. It is clearly a key element in our current acquisition policy, and I'm sorry I cannot make it public today, but we will announce in the coming days an extremely important acquisition in the history of photography with an American woman photographer. So watch for the news. It would be coming from Paris, so you can imagine. Just to tell you a few things concerning the exhibition policies. Monographic exhibition dedicated to women artists will be taking place regularly in Orsay and Orangerie. For instance, Francis mentioned the Berthe Morisot show. Berthe Morisot had never been shown in a national French museum since 1941. Can you realize this? Okay, in Orangerie, yeah, well, I will start with this again. Paola Rigo will have a first solo show in France. Very interesting, I think, discovery for the French audience with an artist, a living artist, dealing a lot with the heritage of the 19th century art, but also with thematics which question also the place of women, you know. For Céline Lagarde that I was just mentioning earlier. And just to end up with research, as Francis mentioned, I am very deeply attached to this notion. I think that museums should be a place for, of course, excellence and research. We are talking right now with AWARE. You know, this is a research group founded by Camille Morinot, who is really trying to build a repertory of women artists in the 20th century and contemporary artists too. But we are proposing to AWARE to extend this to 19th century art, because I think that going back to history is really what we need to do right now in order to change this course of, you know, of rewriting a history of art. So it's very, very important. And also we'll be dedicating in our, we are really right now planning a research center that will be located close to Orsay on the Quai Voltaire. And one of the programs of our future research center that will open in three years, I think, will be, of course, dedicated to women artists. So things are not perfect in France, obviously, but things are starting to change extremely quickly in the institutional world of French museum. Thank you for your attention.